share a few things that I've learned throughout the few years I've been in ministry with the audience today. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just tell everybody a little bit. Some may know you, some may not. Just kind of who you are, what
Yeah.
you're doing, where you're doing it.
Yeah. So like you said, my name is Seth Yolorda, and I am pastoring in Orange County, California, the great OC, in a city called Garden Grove. And I have a congregation called the Westminster Good Samaritan Church. And I've been there for about a year and a half, almost 2 years pastoring them. And we're having a great time. Church is growing. It's a very dynamic church, very diverse, ethnically diverse church. And it's just, it's a great fit for me and a great fit for the church. So we're really, it's almost like that sweet spot in ministry right now, where we're really enjoying our ministry there. I'm married to one woman, Holly Yolorda, formerly Watkins. Got 3 kids, 3 baby girls, 4-year-old, 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. You can probably hear them screaming in the background. And so that's kind of like my life right now.
They're in the background right now.
Yeah. I mean, I can hear them. You may not be able to hear them, but I can hear them screaming. Yeah.
All right, good stuff, man. All right, let's just get into it. But I want to segue this way. Dude, man, your YouTube series is dope, man. It's just, if you're a leader and you're on this, like, seriously, I'm like a connoisseur of all things leadership. I'm constantly reading books, constantly looking for podcasts, constantly. Matter of fact, I don't even listen to that much music anymore in the car because I'm trying to listen to a podcast or something because I'm trying to improve myself. But bro, honestly, man, one of my go-to resources has been your YouTube series, man. And I know you're going to talk about it and promote it, especially at the end of our webinar today. But specifically, man, that joint you did on difficult conversations, man, was just like, I was like, oh my God, like, we have got to, and I shared it with you, I was like, people got to hear about that. Like, Seth, as I was saying, just an introductory, and I'm going to just kind of punt the ball to you. Yeah. Bro, I can't honestly think of anything that has given me more success in ministry and moments of failure in ministry than managing these courageous conversations, these difficult situations, these conflict resolution moments. Like, this is it, man. And so many of our people are struggling in this area, either in one extreme or the other. And man, I'm just excited to hear what you have to share today. So, man, the floor is yours. We're going to be listening. If you have questions, brothers and sisters, just type your questions as they come to mind in the chat section. Go ahead, Seth, man. It's all you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm sure. Well, let me ask our audience, the viewers, is there a way that they can, like, raise a hand or hit the like button, or I don't know much about Zoom.
I think there's a way they can raise their hand. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, if you can raise your hand, I'm sure everyone, if you have difficult people in your life that you've had to deal with, let me just see you raise. I mean, even if you can't raise your hand on Zoom, just raise your hand right now in the air. If you're at work, maybe just give me a nod. I mean, the reality is that we all have difficult people in our lives. There we go. Difficult people will always be a part of our life. That's just how I want to start there. Like, difficult people will always be a part of our life. The YouTube video that Myron is referring to is a video that I did specifically on how to get the wrong people off the bus and the right people on the bus. And I would recommend that you go and watch that after this webinar. And it's really specifically talking to ministry leaders who are trying to move their organization in the right direction and who you just recognize you got some wrong people who don't need to be in the seats that they're in. It may be a leader, it may be an elder, it may be someone on your staff, and you recognize they're just the wrong person. And so I gave some practical tips and tools on how you can make that transition. But in this presentation today, I specifically want to talk about difficult people and not so much getting them off the bus, but how do we as leaders manage them? How do we as leaders manage our interaction and manage our emotions around them? That's really the direction I want to go with today. All of us have difficult people. I'll never forget. I mean, I got stories to tell if we got time. I'll never forget. There was an individual in my life. Let me just say it like this. I've had people through ministry, through personal life, family life, who have threatened to sue me, who have threatened to take me down, to take me under, to destroy my ministry. I've literally been on the phone with someone and they were so irate and so upset. They are hollering through the phone. I can set the phone down, walk away 5 minutes, come back and pick it up, and they still hollering. I've had so many stories, and I got the scars to show to prove it, of just trying to battle and wrestle with difficult people. And I'm sure that my experience in ministry is no different than your experience in ministry. And so the question is, how do we manage it? How do we survive? How do we make sure that these individuals don't take us out and don't get us to the point where we are so defeated and just depressed, where you don't want to see another email come from them? There was times when I would wake up and I would hear my phone buzzing and it was a new email. And if I saw who it was from, it would just ruin my day, because I knew exactly what they were going to say. I knew not just so much what they were going to say, but the spirit in which they were going to say it. It was just not a good relationship. And so I've been there. I've walked down that path. And so if you're there now, I want to let you know that it does get better. There is hope. That it doesn't always have to remain contentious. And I want to hopefully, just provide a few things that you can do that can improve on those relationships. So because difficult people will always be a part of life, I don't want to even just say difficult people will always be a part of our life, but I also want to say difficult people will always be a part of every aspect of our life. So there's difficult people in your ministry. There's difficult people in your family, right? Difficult people in your home, difficult people on your job, difficult people almost in every area, whether you are a pastor or you just work in corporate America, you're a teacher or a nurse, you work in a healthcare setting. No matter where you are, you're always going to confront difficult people. You can go to Walmart and be checking out and run into a difficult person, right? You can be at a store minding your own business and run into a difficult person. And so I don't want us to think that there's something that you can say what?
You can be married to one.
You could be sleeping in the bed next to a difficult person. So I don't want to set anyone up to think that, man, okay, if I just follow these few steps, I'm going to get rid of difficult people out of my life. No, you will never be able to get rid of difficult people. I almost believe that God intentionally sends difficult people into our lives for one reason and one reason alone, and that is to allow us to become fully mature believers in Christ. The goal for us is for us to grow up to be fully mature people, so that no matter who comes our way, no matter what the situation is, no matter what venom or toxicity they are approaching us with, that we will respond with the Spirit of Christ, that we won't respond in the flesh, right? Now, I'm sure we've all at times responded in the flesh. Just 2 days ago, I responded in the flesh to someone that was a very difficult person. And I was in the store. I don't even know this person. They were in my way and they were causing difficulty. And I responded in the flesh. Lord, forgive me. But the goal is for us to become fully mature believers in Christ. I've learned that there are a few different types of difficult people. And I want to show you this. There's 4 types of difficult people. The first type are the downers. These are also known as the negative Nancys or the Debbie Downers. I'm sure you have seen them. They're in your life. These are the people where nothing is ever good enough. They're always going to poke holes in whatever you come with, whatever your proposal. If you're a pastor, whatever you bring to the board, you got some Debbie Downers on the board, some negative Nancys who are going to say, well, we can't do this because of this. We can't do that because of this reason. These people are difficult, right? There may be some who are just intentionally being jerks, right? But I'm that type of person where I want to give you the benefit of the doubt and say, there may be some people, they don't even know they're negative Nancys. They don't even know that that's their MO and that's their approach. That's just who they are. But for whatever reason, they're in your life. So that's one type. That's one type of a difficult person. Another type is the better thans, are also known as the know-it-alls, the one-uppers, or the show-offs. These are people who, no matter what you say, they always got a better idea. And if they don't have a better idea, what they're going to do is they're going to take your idea and they're going to somehow make it into their idea, right? They're just difficult. I could tell you a few stories about some know-it-alls. It's when you start the conversation and nothing that you say is ever right. But they always, well, no, what we really need to be doing is this, or the direction we really need to be going is here. And even if you come and you say, the sky is blue, look, y'all, the sky is blue. They're going to say, no, Pastor, the sky is not blue. The sky is a shade of green mixed with yellow and you know, well, green and yellow, like that. Well, I think that kind of gives you blue. Like, no, Pastor, it's not blue. Like they always have to take you one up. They always have to one up you. So that's definitely a type of difficult person. Then there are those who are passive. Passives are also known as the pushovers, yes men, weaklings. This is a different type of difficulty. They're not aggressively difficult, but they're passively difficult. Hard to motivate, hard to get them to buy in, hard to get them to get on board, to move with with where you're trying to go as an organization. And then you have the tankers, also known as those who are explosive, or they're a handful. You ever heard of someone say, you know, they'll mention someone's name, they'll say, yeah, you know that Sarah, man, she's a handful. You ever heard that phrase before? She's a handful, right? Well, we know what that means. It means that they're high maintenance, right? They're bossy. And I'm not saying Sarah as in females are high maintenance. Let me clarify. It could be it could be a Sam or whoever you want to put in that category. We say that they're a handful. You know, something I've realized is that the reason why we have these people, the reason why they are difficult is because they're causing us some level of frustration at the end of the day. You know, difficult people, whether it's on our job, it's in our family, it's, you know, someone that our neighbor, you know, someone that you live next to, they're causing us frustration. And I want to just stop and ask the question, why? Like, why are they causing you frustration? I was looking at a book not too long ago, and the title of the book was People Can't Drive You Crazy Unless You Give Them the Key.
Oh, man.
I want to say that again. People can't drive you crazy unless you give them the key, right? So if someone's causing you frustration, the question is, why are they causing you frustration? And this is more, see, what I realize in dealing with difficult people is that it's really about me checking myself and me doing introspection to realize, okay, what's going on within myself that I am allowing this person to get under my skin? What's going on within myself that I'm allowing this person to push my buttons, right? I grew up with 3 sisters. And my mom, the oldest one right above me, my mom used to religiously tell me, Seth, don't let her push your buttons. Why are you letting her push your buttons? And so what I've come to experience and learn through working with people is, okay, Seth, why are you letting this person get under your skin? Why is this person pushing your buttons? Why does this person put you in a position where they're causing you frustration or worst case anxiety, where they're causing you to just be discouraged? It's more of that person forces me to do some reflection, some personal reflection on why. And so that's one thing I just want to put out there, is that if you find yourself in a difficult a relationship that is causing you frustration and they're a difficult person, just stop and just try to evaluate why, to gain clarity on yourself. On exactly what you're going through, what's your state of mind, that you're allowing this person to have control and to cause you frustration. Jesus dealt with difficult people all the time.
He was surrounded by difficult people. Oh.
I don't know if he let them push his buttons. I mean, there was probably one instance, I mean, when he was in the temple, when he just got so irate, you know, at what was taking place in the temple, that he turned over the tables and he got frustrated and he just kind of went after people. But I don't believe that was a point of frustration where people had pushed his buttons and drove him to that level of violence, I'll say, quote unquote, that level of outrage. You know, that was righteous indignation, that where people were the religious rulers were taking advantage of his children, of those he came to save. And so it was more righteous indignation. But throughout his ministry, it's almost like he gives us principles. And I want to fast. Let me see if I can fast forward this. He gives us principles. He says, but I tell you who hear me. He says, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you, do to others as you would have them do to you. I mean, here's a principle that Jesus really gives us, I believe, on dealing with difficult people. 4 things. He says, love them, do good to them, bless them, and pray for them.
I didn't
Like that's our.
I didn't sign up to hear that, man.
Say that again.
Hey, somebody said I didn't sign up to hear that. Tell me how to get rid of them.
I mean, that's what we want to do. We want to get rid of them. But listen, difficult people are like baby's kids, man. They don't die. They multiply. Listen, I guarantee you, if you get rid of one, someone else, and this is why they're not going anywhere, because you're not going anywhere. And their difficulty in your life, you are contributing to that difficulty. Let me use like a formula. It's almost like A plus B equals C, right? They are A, right? Their personality is A. Your personality is C. I mean, your personality is B, and that equals difficulty. That equals frustration, right? So if you get rid of them, guaranteed, anyone that you put in that spot, you're always going to encounter people who are going to rub you the wrong way. And I promise you that just as much as you might be identifying these individuals as difficult, I promise you, they're identifying you as difficult. Like the role is also reversed. They're saying, man, Pastor Seth is just a difficult. I'm saying, man, this person is a difficult person. And they're looking at me like, man, you're just such a difficult person. It's the nature of personalities combining. It's the mixture of like oil and water. It doesn't mix. And so Jesus gives us a recipe that says, listen, you're never going to be able to get rid of them. What I want you to do is love them. I want you to do good to them. I want you to bless them, and I want you to pray for them. That's principle number 1. Now, I do want to say, as I've learned throughout my ministry, is that you have to prioritize situations. And I want to break that down. Yeah. And I came upon this principle some time ago, and it really blessed me. So, and I'm going to say it, then I'm going to break it down. So if the relationship is priority, then you, what just happened? Okay. So if the relationship is priority, at all costs, protect the relationship. So what do I mean? So let's say there's a difficult person in your church and they're in a position of leadership, or maybe they're just a member of the church, not even the leader. Mm-hmm. And they're causing you frustration, and there's something that's going on that is creating a scenario that is less than ideal. You have to ask yourself the question, is preserving this relationship priority, or is preserving the issue priority? Mm-hmm. And if the relationship is priority, then the way that you approach that person is, you know what, the issue is not even a big deal, right? So let's say, for example, you wanted your minister music, you wanted them to sing a song a certain way. I'm just hypothetical. You wanted them to sing a song a certain way, and they didn't do what you asked, right? So you can come and you can say, okay, is the fact that they didn't sing this song a certain way like a priority? Is that something I really need to harp on, or is preserving the relationship with this person? And if the preserving the relationship is really is most important or should be prioritized, then I'm not going to make a big deal about the fact that they didn't sing the song a certain way. I'm going to confront them about it, and we're going to have a conversation about it. But ultimately, I want to preserve the relationship. Does that make sense? Are you tracking?
Yep. I'm tracking, but I want to hear how the issue becomes priority.
So if the issue is priority, and I mean, I think Jesus gives us a good example of this with the situation when he was in the temple, okay, right? And so the religious leaders were denying those who could not afford. They were basically charging exorbitant prices to get, offerings.
Yeah.
And worship. They were preventing them from worshiping, right? And so worship was the issue, right? You're preventing the people from coming and experiencing worship. So because that was the issue, Jesus protected that issue at all costs.
Mm.
So in your church or in my church, if I'm trying to, let's say, and I've heard of stories, thankfully this hasn't happened in my context, but I've heard of stories where there are older members who are running off new believers, right? Well, that's an issue. I can't create a church where older members, traditional members, are running off new believers because they're not looking a certain way, dressing a certain way, acting a certain way. So I'm going to protect that issue, that we will become a church that is welcoming and accepting of all people. That's the issue. And because that issue is priority, I'm going to protect that issue at all costs. I was listening to this conference a couple of days ago. I think you were listening to it as well. And the pastor shared testimony, or he shared a situation in his church where the church was in the process of like renovating, and it was an all hands on deck situation. And everyone was pitching in, everyone was contributing, everyone was painting, everyone was putting up drywall, everyone was pulling out carpet. And there was one particular member who was very gifted in giving Bible studies. They're like the Bible worker for the church, very gifted, very skilled in giving Bible studies. And they just refused to contribute. They refused to participate in this church-wide renovation initiative. Well, it happened on one particular day. There were a group of people in the sanctuary helping renovate, and the member came in, and the pastor was like, hey, why don't you, grab a paintbrush and come help us paint? And the member was like, God didn't call me to this church to paint. He called me to this church to give Bible studies. And the pastor at that moment had to make a decision how he was going to address this situation. And he said, well, listen, if you're not able to pick up a paintbrush and paint with this church, then this isn't the church for you.
Wow.
So he was essentially establishing that the issue of us creating a culture where we all circle the wagons and move together is so important that if you're unwilling to participate in this endeavor, we love you, but this just isn't the church for you. Mm. And so that's what I mean by, if the issue is priority, then you must protect that issue at all costs.
So in other words, if I hear you correctly, there are certain issues that trump relationships.
Yes. And when I say trump relationships, that doesn't mean you're mean to that person or you are disrespectful to that person. You're still following the principles, love, you're doing good, you're blessing them, you're praying for them, but you recognize that, okay, your presence here we can't sustain this. This can't continue.
Okay, so James Johnson is saying, he says, it seems like real issues are those that relate to relationships on some level. Issues that sabotage relationships would be prioritized issues. It almost sounds like he's saying that even the issues that would, for lack of a better word, that would trump the relationship strategy, he's saying they generally have to do with relationships. I don't know. I don't want to slow you up, but can you think of any scenarios? People are tracking this. Can you think of any scenarios where there is an issue that doesn't necessarily connect in a church situation? That's not necessarily a relationship issue, but is an issue that I have to say, hey, here's a principle that I got to stand on. And preserving the relationship right now is not more important than taking a stand on this issue.
I mean, if you have someone that is abusive, emotionally abusive, spiritually abusive, verbally abusive, I think that's what Jesus was dealing with the Pharisees. Mm-hmm. If you have someone that is just so counterculture, contradictory to your culture, someone who is not trying to help the organization, help your church move in the right direction. You love them, and we're going to get to this in a little bit. You love them, you pray for them, you want what's best for them, but you recognize we can't stay in a relationship. Because your presence here is taking us off course. Your presence here it's not edifying to the body, right? And so, it's funny because in Christianity we feel like, well, if you leave my church, well, then you left Christ, and that's not necessarily true. You can leave my church and say, you know what, I'm sorry, but this is just not the church for you. I know of 10 other churches where you might be a better fit. right? I know of 10 other churches that may be more in alignment with your preference and your style of worship, or your preference and your style of administration, or your preference and your style of how things should be done. But this is not the church for you, you know? And so ultimately we have to understand what those closed fist priority issues are and protect them, our values as a congregation. And if there's individuals that are threatening them and are trying to take us in a different direction, I'm sorry, I'm going to prioritize these issues, because these issues are ultimately what God has called us to fulfill and to accomplish in life in this church.
I ask you a question about this. You raised this is. I mean, a lot of people are responding to this right now, but you know, you made a point about the church. You're saying, look, just because Paul and well, I think it was Paul and John Mark, or Paul and Barnabas, right. They separated. Paul didn't link the Silas. So, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, right? There's like 6 or 7 churches here, maybe more if you include the other conferences. Let's just say there's 10 churches. Just because somebody decides that they don't want to attend my church and they go to another church, I think sometimes we look at that. So I think that we look at that deeper than what it is. To be honest, there's really one Adventist church in Cleveland. There's one. There's one. But there are 10 different ministries, if you please. You know what I'm saying? I think we need to look at it that way, because I may not be a good fit for that ministry, but I might be a good fit for the ministry across there. But we don't really look at church as ministry. We look at church more so as family. And I think that's where it comes in. Our heart is broken, obviously, and it should be broken. I'm not saying they should not. I'm just saying when you have a cultural conflict, and this is what you're talking about, when you have an issue of prioritized relationship or issue, I think sometimes we are gun shy to say these things. I know I am. I'm gun shy to say, maybe this church is not a good fit for you. There's another thing that might fit you better. We are hesitant to say that, and I'm assuming, I don't know why, but we are.
I mean, we're not cultured to say that. That's not a part of what church is. But I feel like Jesus said that. I mean, when I look at the scriptures, Jesus, he was like, yo, like, this is the direction the kingdom of heaven is going. If you're not about this direction, then the kingdom of heaven is not for you. I'm sorry. Like, I feel like Jesus was that clear, and he drew those boundary lines to say, like, this is what it means to be a child of God. This is what it means to be a disciple of God. This is what it means to be a part of this movement. And those Pharisees who are trying to detract from this movement, like, I'm sorry, but you got to find someplace else. And I think that's hard for us to do. And this is, again, I really want to reiterate that this is not saying that there's any love loss, or that there is, like, you don't like the person. I still believe that they're your brother in Christ, but I just feel like as far as us working together in this capacity, it's not going to work because of the issues that are here. You could use Paul and Barnabas and John Mark as an example. I've heard some people say, that Paul was wrong. He should have taken Mark. And I mean, that's debatable. But if you can't argue against the fruit that the gospel went forward, and the gospel was all the more effective because they were able to divide and they went to various places, So, yeah, I think we have to know that relationships are important, and we want to work with people. And if the relationship is priority over the issue, then at all costs, let the issue go. But there's some issues, I believe, that must be priority, and it's not preferences that are priority. It's not like, oh, we're going to prioritize my style of music, or we're going to prioritize how I want to do things, or the dress code of our church above the people. No, what I'm prioritizing is how we're going to reaching people, winning the lost. Right. And so you're coming and you're detracting us in our attempts, distracting us from trying to actually accomplish the mission, which is to reach the lost. Then you're not helping the movement. And if you're not helping the movement, then don't listen. I heard one pastor say this. He stands at his church, and there's some members who come, and or some visitors or regular attenders who come. And when he greets them at the door, they say, Pastor, the music's too loud, or why do y'all play this music, or why can't we do this? And he says to them, listen, if you're going to be here, be happy. If you're not going to be happy, go someplace you can be happy. If you're going to be here, be happy to be here.
Why can't they just turn the music down? Why can't they just turn the music down and make the person happy?
Well, I mean, I know in this particular church, the reason the music is loud is because that's a specific strategy that he's employing to reach a specific type of person. And it's working. The church is growing. You know, it's Adventist church in California, and they're close to 1,000, if not, above 1,000 members, and their church is full of young adults. And that's the environment he's creating for them, and he's like, if you can't be here and be happy, then don't be here. Like, don't be here and be upset. If you're upset, go someplace where you can be happy, and I think that's the principle here. I know we kind of got off track a little bit, but I'm not seeing the comments. So I just want to know if there are any other comments or questions along those lines.
We can wrap it up here, but Eric Smith said, we can assume that family members move on. And I'm sorry. He said, we can assume that family members move on and leave the house they were raised in because they've outgrown their position there. He said they cannot comply to the rules set by the house, but it doesn't change the fact that they are still family. Sometimes, people, even in our families, they leave the house, they decide they don't like the rules. I remember my dad kicked out a couple of us here and there, but we're still, yeah. Yep. Go ahead, man.
Okay. So let's press forward. So I want to have just share a few things that will lead us towards courageous conversations. And I don't know if you've read the book Crucial Conversations, or if you've heard of the book Crucial Conversations. I believe it's written by the same authors that wrote Influencers, which you highlighted last time. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to bring out a few principles. This is a resource that I would recommend pastors that you embrace, pastors, ministry leaders, or anyone really, that you really take advantage of. You can find the free version online if you just Google Crucial Conversations PDF. It's online, or you can buy the book. And when you're dealing with difficult people, something that they suggest is that you have to be willing to embrace that crucial conversation. Now, a crucial conversation is a conversation between two or more people where stakes are high, opinions vary, and emotions run strong. Now, those three things are critical to say. Stakes are high, emotions vary, opinions vary, and emotions run high. Stakes are high, opinions vary, and emotions run strong, right? And so you're trying to make a decision. I know recently my church a few years ago tried to make a decision about selling the building. Stakes were high, right? What are we going to do if we sell our building? Where are we going to go? Opinions varied. Everyone had a different opinion. Should we sell it? Should we not sell it? The emotions run strong. The reason emotions run strong are because people are invested emotionally in the decision that's being made, right? And so when stakes are high, opinions vary, emotions run strong, this is what we call a crucial conversation. And as leaders, we have to be willing to embrace crucial conversations. It's a lot easier just to avoid them. In fact, I think that's my next slide. How we typically handle crucial conversations is we avoid them. We can face them and handle them poorly. Or we can face them and handle them well. Most of us, myself included, we avoid them, right? I don't want to deal with it. Let me stick my head in the sand and I hope it goes away, right? And if it's significant enough, then I'm gonna bury my head deep in the sand and I'll just let the next leader deal with it, right? My time, I'm not gonna be here forever. As Adventists, we know we're on a clock. So let me just, I'll just buy my time until my change comes. And I'll let the next leader deal with it. Wait them out, man. Either I'm gonna leave or they gonna leave, but I'm not gonna have that conversation. And yet I believe as leaders, we are actually called to have those crucial conversations. Whether it's the person in your family, whether it's the person on your job or in your church, we have to have them. And so I want to give us some principles. Why don't crucial conversations tend to go well? Again, emotions tend to rule. Your body physically reacts. We are under pressure. We are stumped. We act in self-defeating ways. I mean, Myron, let me ask you, have you ever had a conversation with someone that could be classified as a crucial conversation and it didn't go well?
Yeah.
All the time, right? I had a conversation not too long ago with someone. This is the situation where I told you the person was hollering at me through the phone. I put the phone down, walked away, came back, and they were still hollering at me, right? And after I got off the phone with that individual, I realized, man, that didn't really go the way I would have hoped it would have gone, right? Stakes were high, opinions varied, emotions ran well. Emotions ran wild. And a lot of us, we engage in conversations and they don't go well. And a lot of reasons why they don't go well is listed here is our emotions tend to rule. You know, we come into the situation defensively. In fact, they say, this is your brain during a normal conversation. This is what you look like during a normal conversation. All right. This is your brain. This is your brain during a crucial conversation, right? You know, adrenaline, it can do that to you. Adrenaline starts pumping. You get defensive. You know, it may be an email that you just got and you're like, what? They said what? And you get on, you hit that reply all button and you are just going to work, typing, you know, because the adrenaline is pumping. I have been here so many times throughout my ministry, you know, and I've learned that hitting the send button on that type of email, while it might satisfy my frustration and make me feel like, bam, there, to take that, there you go, it never helps the situation. It never helps the situation. So this is what they talk about. This is this book. This is a little summary. So the essence of embracing a crucial conversation is really understanding this thing called the dialogue model. And this thing is powerful when you understand it. And I'm only going to be able to give a short overview, and I'm probably not going to be able to do it as much justice as I would like to. So I really want to encourage you to pick up the book and to read it, and you'll really understand exactly where the authors are coming from. But whenever someone confronts you or you find yourself in a difficult situation, you naturally start telling yourself stories, right? And the story that you start to tell yourself is an incomplete story. So you're confronted in church with, okay, a better example. You asked your treasurer to cut a check in for you in church, and you never got a response from your treasurer. And so you naturally think, well, why didn't they respond? I gave them 3-4 days to do it. I haven't heard back from them. My secretary told me it hasn't happened yet. And so you start to tell yourself a story. Well, they probably haven't responded because they don't agree with why I'm asking them to cut a check, or because they're trying to stonewall this initiative, or they're trying to block this initiative. And so you start telling yourself a story. And once you tell yourself this story, your emotions then get engaged and you start feeling how you are telling yourself the story. So you start feeling upset and feeling, you know, agitated and feeling annoyed, right? And then what happens is then you begin to act on those feelings. You begin to act agitated. You begin to act annoyed. And so when you see your treasurer at church next day, rather than approaching him trying to gain understanding, you're approaching that individual with a whole lot of assumptions. You're approaching them with the story that you told yourself, right? I've done that all the time. And after reading this book, I realized, man, listen, if I really want to address individuals and defuse situations, I can't allow myself to tell myself a story. Like, I just can't do that. I have to be willing to say, okay, the reason why they didn't respond is probably because they're busy, or probably because they didn't get the email. I have to essentially give that person the benefit of the doubt. I once heard someone say it like this: never ascribe a worse motive to someone than you would want ascribed to yourself. Whoa. Never ascribe a worse motive to someone than you would want ascribed to yourself. So if you would want someone to give you the benefit of the doubt, then you must also give that person the benefit of the doubt.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Yeah.
Essentially. If you look at this circle here, the whole idea is that you want to get to that point of where they call the pool of shared meaning, where you're able to express how you feel, they can express how they feel, and it's a place of safety. You'll never reach that pool of shared meaning if you allow yourself to tell yourself stories and then allow your emotions to engage those stories, and then you act based off of those stories. And essentially, they say the further you get from that pool of shared meaning, the further you get into silence and into violence. And this is essentially what this looks like. So types of silence and violence, you can see the blue dialogue. Without having dialogue, you begin masking the steps towards silence, masking, avoiding, withdrawing. So withdrawing is you're pulling out of communication completely, physically, emotionally, psychologically. Avoiding, you're staying away from unsafe topics or issues.
Oh,
Masking, understating, sugarcoating, sarcasm, selectively showing, right? Because you're not having that crucial conversation, you're not engaging that person in dialogue, you begin moving towards silence where you just say, you know what, I'm going to distance myself from this person. And you do that through masking, through avoiding, and withdrawing. The other alternative is you move towards violence, controlling, coercing others through how we share our views, interrupting, overstating, absolutes. Absolutes are like, you always do this, right? You always do that. Making those types of statements. Labeling, trying to win or have others give in through ridiculing their ideas, attacking, making sure others hurt emotionally, physically, or psychologically, right? So these are the unhealthy extremes that pull us away from that pool of shared meaning where ideally we want to be, which is we are embracing dialogue. And it's healthy, safe dialogue where I can share with them how I feel, I can hear from them, we can come to a mutual understanding. Now, this is ideal. 7 steps.
We got a couple of questions. That slide you put up, bro, just provoked, man, a series of questions. We actually have about 15 minutes left, so okay. I'm gonna go to questions when you're done.
Oh, so okay. So let me run through real quick. Just a few more things. The 7 principles of crucial conversations start with the heart. It starts with you, as I said earlier, reflecting on, okay, what's going on in my personal life? How am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Look to learn. Make it safe. Create a safe place where you can have that conversation with that individual. Master your story. Make sure you're very clear on how you feel and why you feel the way you feel. State my path. These are things I can't get into because of the time. Explore others' paths and move to action. I just want to recommend that you really pick up that resource, that book, and I have a copy of it at the end where I'll show you so you can see it and you can get it from Amazon or from your local bookstore.
I posted the link.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So step 1 is embrace courageous conversation. Step 2 is don't try to change them, right? That if you're dealing with difficult people, recognize you're not going to change them. Their mama couldn't change them. Their husband or their wife couldn't change them. Recognize you're probably not going to try to change this person. So don't try to change them. The purpose of courageous conversations is to gain understanding. Stephen Covey, in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he puts down 2 principles that I think are just solid. One of them is seek first to understand, then to be understood. Right. So if I have someone in my life who is difficult, rather than me trying to come to them and change them or try to tell them how I feel, let me just understand how they feel. Let me understand what's going on in their life. Let me first seek to understand how they are, and then that will inform my position and I can let them know how I feel. The other principle he gives is always think win-win. How can this be a win-win situation? That person who's being difficult, unless they're just toxic and they're a jerk and they are dysfunctional, which there are some people in that category, unless they're in that category, and we're going to get to that in a minute, unless they're in that category, that person probably is sincere and they want what's best for the organization as they see it. So how can I bring them along, keep the relationship intact, and we have a win-win situation? Right? So don't try to change them. Always try to gain understanding. And this is the last point. Don't let them be toxic, right? There are some people that are just dysfunctional and toxic and they're sick, and you're not a trained psychologist. You're not their doctor. You're not a mental health professional. You can't handle their issues. And so I want to empower you, as I was empowered this last weekend by a pastor who came to visit us. He says, listen, if you find people in your life that are toxic, give them the gift of distance. Right? There's some people that you just say, you know what, I can't be around you. I've tried to have that crucial conversation. It's gotten us nowhere. The behavior is not changing. I recognize that this is not, a healthy situation. Emotionally, for me, it's not healthy. I'm sure for you, it's not healthy as well. I'm just going to give you the gift of distance. And if those are members in your church, leaders in your church, that's when you have to have that tough conversation. You have to say, you know what? This may not be the church for you. We don't like saying that, but I believe that there are,
Well,
there's a quote.
You have ministry leaders. Well, you have a lot of ministry leaders on here who lead ministries, and it's the same application. You would say that, right?
Exact same thing. I mean, if you have someone on your team, and it's just not working. I mean, you may not say this is not the church for you, but say, you know what, based off of your gifts and who you are, we might be able to find a better ministry for you. We might be able to find a better place, a better fit for you in this church. I mean, there's people in every church. There's people in my church. There's people that have been in all of my churches who are difficult. There is no perfect church because there are no perfect people. So it's not about how can I get rid of them per se. It's, I want to grow them, but I want to become fully mature so that no matter how difficult they are, I can still show them the love of Christ. I can still be good to them, be kind to them, pray for them, and I can still bless them. But if it gets to the point where it's just toxic, and when I say toxic, I'm meaning it's emotionally unhealthy for you to be in a relationship with that person, then those are the situations where you have to say, you know what, I have to separate myself and give them the gift of distance. I'm still going to pray for you from afar, but I can't be in close relationships with you. I've been in situations like that on multiple occasions, members in my church, leaders in my church, board members, where it was just a toxic relationship. Their presence on the team, their presence on the board was just toxic. And I recognize as a church, we can't continue to operate with them in this position, right? It's going to cripple the church moving forward, and so you have to make that hard call and ask them to step down, to resign, to step aside. If you're a pastor, if you're in a position of authority where you can do that.
If you're a ministry leader, you could say to a team member, look, I don't think this is the team for you.
Most definitely.
I'm the leader and you're on the team and we just can't seem to gel. I think it's important for us to have unity and for us to show that in front. And if you can't have that, but I think one of the things I hear you saying and emphasizing, we're going to answer some questions, is that at all costs, avoidance is not an option. Like avoiding these issues and avoiding having these conversations, I didn't see that as one of your options on there.
No, and I want to be clear, there's a difference between distance and avoidance, right? Distance, you give for someone the gift of distance once you have attempted to confront the issue, once you've attempted to address them and have that crucial conversation, and you fully understand their position, and they should fully understand your position because you've articulated to them on several occasions, and you recognize that this, in spite of all the conversations, is not getting any better, then I just need to separate myself from the situation. That's not avoidance. Avoidance is when you haven't had the conversation, but you just don't feel like being bothered with them, and you just bury your head in the sand and hope they go away.
But you're telling yourself that story that's talking you out of doing it. It's like I don't know about you, but that's been me. It's like I have talked myself out of. As a matter of fact, I can't think of one time in ministry where I've been in a season where there has not been a crucial conversation I need to have. Right now, there's a crucial conversation I need to have. When I get off of this webinar, I need to set up some meetings with some individuals to have crucial conversations. So it's always going to be there. And if you're going to lead effectively, and I want everybody to hear this, like if you're going to lead effectively, you cannot be an avoider of confrontation. You just can't do it. Your ministry is going to suffer. You're going to be unhappy. You're going to be frustrated. They're going to be frustrated. The church is not going to be blessed. Here's a couple questions, Seth, that came as a result. I'm going to pick Tam. She says, what if you've had a similar run-in with a person previously? What if your story about them is right? I don't know. You may have answered that already, but we got 5 minutes, so answer this quickly.
Yeah. I mean, if you've been down that road before and you see it coming again, I would not suggest avoiding them again. But I do believe that, only what they say, insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, right? So if I know your MO and we've had these crucial conversations and I recognize that this is just not a healthy situation, then I'm just going to continue to distance myself. If you're put in a position, and it's really tough because relationships are tough and church is tough. And so there's no silver bullet. I really want to reiterate that. There's not like a silver bullet that will solve all your difficult people problems. It's not that easy. We're constantly put in places of tension and frustration. One, God's growing our character. Two, God wants to use us to let our light shine so that other people can be blessed. Sometimes we just have to do good. Sometimes we have to repay good for evil, which the Bible says, Proverbs says, heaping coals of fire upon their head, right? Sometimes you just have to turn the other cheek. That's what Luke says. Matthew says that, turn the other cheek. They take your cloak, give them your jacket too. They take you 1 mile, go 2 miles. Like sometimes you just have to be that person. Now, I'm not suggesting you doing all those things in an emotionally abusive situation, right? If the situation is abusive, they're verbally abusing you, emotionally abusing you, spiritually abusing you, I'm not suggesting you turn the other cheek. I'm suggesting you leave the situation altogether, right? But if they're just annoying, right? If it's just an annoying situation and the person is just, there's like, you all just don't gel together. Well, in those situations, I believe that God has called us to go the distance with them as much as we can, as much as we're able, as the Holy Spirit empowers us and directs us to go the distance with them. So if you see that person, you lead out, and let's say in praise team, or you're the children's choir leader, and there's one particular child in your choir whose parent is one of those soccer parents who's always arguing and fussing about everything. They don't like the songs you select. They don't like what you have the kids wearing, the uniforms they got them wearing. The parent always got something to say. I mean, sometimes, yes, you can have that crucial conversation with that parent, and you can say, hey, this is the program. This is where we're going. I really need your support. Your antagonism is not helping the situation. But you also recognize that there's a child involved, right? And God's put you in a position to minister and to create ministry opportunities for that child to be a part of this ministry. And so there's going to be some difficult people, but you just have to, it's almost like Paul. They're just like a thorn in your flesh. And you just have to, by the grace of God, deal with them, right?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about abuse. I'm talking about annoyance, right? I'm talking about they just annoy me to death. They may just be that thorn in the flesh.
I mean, to your point, though, we shouldn't be so quick to put the label. Again, like this point you're making about telling ourselves the story. Like what you're saying, I'm just going to be a betting man right now. I would bet that there are it's a small percentage of people that are watching and people that will watch this who can say, I've gone the distance. I followed Matthew 18. I went one-on-one. That didn't work. I brought somebody else, a neutral person, not on my side, not on their side. Or some of the other steps that you outlined. For the most part, we're listening to our story and we've not given ourselves an opportunity to allow ourselves to understand where they're coming from. Like that's our struggle. Like I'm saying avoidance. Seth, I've only seen like 2 people in the church, like 2, and they're both unhealthy. They're the confrontational ones that will tell you off in front of everybody. And then they're the avoider who's not going to deal with anything. Like God raised up a generation of people who have crucial conversations.
Mm-hmm. The other thing, Myron, I would add is I think as pastors, we have not done a good job at creating a context or a culture for these conversations to take place as a church. Like how many churches?
The next webinar is actually going to be on this. Yeah, it is. Yep.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, like how many? I don't know of any churches that I know, like intentionally, where the leadership of the church intentionally creates forums for Matthew 18. Right. I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like as a leader myself, as leaders, we could definitely do a better job at creating a context where crucial conversations take place and are encouraged in our congregation. There's people I can think of right now in my church, people in previous churches, friends of mine who have churches where I think about it and say, man, this is a tough person. It's a tough personality. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just annoying. They're just annoying. Bottom line. When you see personality conflicts, yeah. Right? Those people, I think that we have to be patient with and patient for, and God's placed them in our life to grow us and to minister to them. So are there other questions? What are other questions? I know we're
those are all the questions I have. I do want you listen, guys, and some of it he didn't get into. You've got to check out his YouTube page. If you have not subscribed to it, you need to subscribe to it. Seth, I don't know if you have a slide that has that information or if you're going to tell them. But
Yeah, I didn't put it on there, but if you, my YouTube page, if you just go to YouTube and type my name, Seth Yolorda, it'll come up. My channel is just Peter Seth, YouTube, like youtube.com//Peter Seth. So they're all listed right there. You'll see them. And I would love for you to subscribe. I'd love for you to follow. I'd love for you to, if there's issues in your church, you can go to my website as well, SethYolorda.com, and maybe we can put that in the memo, in the thing, SethYolorda.com. All my videos are there as well. If you are facing issues in your church and you want some more direct intervention or some counsel or some consulting, I would love to work with you or your church, your leaders. So you can check out my website, SethYolorda.com. There's a number of resources there, as well as you can get in contact with me straight from that site.
Awesome. Listen, guys, some of you are saying we need more time. We've got to end. We should have ended 2 minutes ago, but we got to honor the time. But I want to tell you this. If you have scenarios, if you need coaching on some scenarios and some situations, some circumstances, I would love to Zoom with you. I'll Zoom with you one-on-one. I'll respond to your emails. And we'll coach you through this. I honestly will tell you this. Almost 90% of the time that I have had trouble in my ministry, it has been with how to handle a crucial conversation. I even remember an instance where I almost got into a fight with an elder. This was many, many moons ago. This is before I was saved. I got saved after that. But I almost got into a fight. And what I did was I called about 4 or 5 people to get advice on how to handle the situation. Listen to me. Some of you right now are in a place, you know who the person is, you know the situation is, and I would love to be that person that kind of gives you some guidance, that responds, that helps you. So if you want to contact me, my email is leadpastor. Matter of fact, I'll put it in here. It's leadpastor@readysetgrace.com. That's my email. Email me your situations. If it's of a nature that I can't really respond totally in an email, we can set up a Zoom, chat, FaceTime, and I'll help you work through it as best as I can.